I just have a curious question. So throughout your career covering sports, what would you say is probably your most memorable sports moment? And what was it like to cover it on a radio afterwards?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say my most, I've had so many moments, both good and bad, throughout my career that I remember. I'm a huge college basketball guy. That's my favorite sport,
Okay.
and a diehard UConn fan. So I've met Jim Calhoun now 2 or 3 times. That's my guy.
Awesome.
So
I
whenever I
love
got to
Jim
do a
Calhoun.
story with him, that was kind of surreal. And then, whether it's doing post game for like a big game, big Patriots game, or a big Celtics game we were on during the Celtics run a few years ago when they lost in Game 7 of the Cavs. So what was that? 2018, right?
Yeah.
2018.
Mhm.
That was a lot of fun. Just kind of being in the mix and being able to give your opinion right off the bat and kind of take that feedback from callers pretty much immediately is always a great time. And then, in the field, whether it was covering the Patriots and seeing Tom Brady up close and personal, and kind of fangirling out in front of him, or doing some of the college basketball stuff and kind of building relationships with guys too, that like at first, whether it's an Ed Cooley or someone like that, where you're like, oh, I recognize this guy from TV. And then all of a sudden, you're doing a show with him, is pretty cool. It's been pretty fun. I'll tell you guys a funny story. So like I said, the first time I ever did TV was at a small station in Worcester, and it was 2013, and Brad Stevens had just got hired as the head coach
Your
of the
guy.
Celtics. Yeah, it was my guy. Like I said, I'm a diehard college basketball fan, so I love UConn, and then I love those Butler teams. Obviously, like Gordon Hayward and Matt Howard and all those guys. But even after that, like Rodney Clark was this like transferred in and just gunned it from like 40 feet, like a poor man's Jimmer Fredette. I thought he was the best. And so I fangirled out on Brad Stevens. He's my favorite coach by far. And he gets hired as a Celtics coach, which nobody saw. I don't know if you guys remember that, but that completely off the board
Yeah,
hire.
that came out of nowhere.
And so I get an email from the Celtics, and they're like, hey, we're going to do interviews with the new head coach. If you want to come down and do one, we can get you in. And at the time, I just started. I'd never done like I've never interviewed a big time professional athlete or coach. Like all my stuff was either high school, like AHL, like minor league stuff. This was my first like professional thing. And it was Brad Stevens, like my second favorite coach in college basketball. And I'm like 23. And I stayed up like all night, like a nerd, prepping for this one-on-one. And the questions I was asking, like in my mind, I thought I was gonna like leave the interview as like Brad Stevens' best friend. Like we were gonna get dinner like once a month after that. He was gonna be so impressed by like what I was doing. Like best case scenario, I'm an assistant on the Celtics like next year. I'm gonna be like I'm gonna be the Woj of the Celtics, and he's gonna be feeding me information nonstop. And so I stay up all night, and like the questions I was asking is more to like show off that I knew bad. I was like, remember in like the second half of like 1607 of the championship against UConn when like Matt Howard hedged on that ball screen? Like, you gonna do that with the Celtics? Like, what? Like, who is this kid? And so I get there, and first of all, like ESPN has this gorgeous set. NBC Sports Boston has this beautiful set. I'm one-man banding, which means like I'm running the camera myself. I'm like coming in with like the tripod camera, like drenched in sweat. They like stuff me in the corner of the practice facility. He finally gets to me after like an hour and a half, and I'm like, I have my notepad ready. I'm ready to go, and I hit record on the camera, and I forgot a chip to record on. So like there was nothing to. The camera just wasn't like there was nothing. That was it. Like there was nothing to record. I was so embarrassing, and I didn't want to be like in front of the Celtics head coach and Brad Stevens and be like, by the way, like the camera's not going to work. So I just interviewed him for 15 minutes, knowing the whole time like nothing was being recorded. I get out of there. My boss was like, "How'd it go?" And I was like, "Yeah, it was good, but we didn't get any of that whatsoever."
I hope Brad hears that story.
I know that was tough. That was tough. So that was my most embarrassing moment. That was brutal. That was tough.